Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Eden Road podcast, where on tonight's show, we're going to be reflecting on defeat at the Emirates on Saturday night, as well as briefly looking forward to a big game at Burnley this weekend. Joining me for that is Craig. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. I'm just glad we didn't get battered, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that was the main thing. Dan, we'll get onto it, but how are you?
Yeah, all good. Bit more nervous about next weekend, though.
Yeah, just a touch. Just before we get going, guys, remember to comment down below with your thoughts post Arsenal. Subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, and also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Eden Road on Twitter and at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. We'll start off with Tweet of the Week. I did a few bookmarks this week, but I did find one interaction that made me chuckle. Either of you know who Juan_MBW is? He's started to pop up quite a bit on my Twitter feed. But he actually made a good point, but it was the exchange afterwards that made me chuckle. But he said, and I thought we could kind of segue into a conversation about Arteta, because I saw you tweet something about him as well, Craig. He said, so obvious Frank doesn't like him. And he was talking about the handshake between Frank and Arteta after the game, which was pretty callous, to say the least. So yeah, he said, so obvious Frank doesn't like him. Compare this to Klopp and Guardiola and it shows everything. Arteta is by far the least liked manager in the league. And then afterwards, he went on to claim that he knows Thomas Frank better than people think he does, which was a bit odd. I just think it was very strange. But he's since deleted the tweet. But I thought we could just segue into a conversation about, is Arteta the most unlikable manager in the league, Craig?
Well, I don't like him. I mean, yeah, you're right. I posted a tweet saying I actually don't mind Arsenal as a club. And I don't mind their fan base, actually. But he makes me want them to not succeed. I just find him insufferable. And he acts as if the whole world is against them as a football club. When really, every team this season suffered from a few very questionable decisions from officials. And I'm sure we're going to go on to a very questionable one that we had against us. So I just think that, he's the boy who cried wolf, yet the Premier League is stupid enough to listen to him.
Dan, I think my main qualm with him not commenting on the dive, and we will get onto the dive, was that he didn't kind of brandish it, the fogging disgrace that he labelled the Newcastle incident that happened earlier in the season. But we'll get onto that and the kind of differences between the two situations. What do you think of Arteta? I'm with Craig. I kind of do have a soft spot for Arsenal. I'd rather they win the league than Liverpool or Man City, just because I think I dislike Klopp more than I dislike Arteta. But how do you feel about Arteta, Dan?
I mean, in terms of Arsenal in general, I think I know a lot more Arsenal fans than I know Liverpool and City fans, so I do find them quite annoying. But I don't know if that is just because I know more of them. And they seem to be all over Twitter. Yeah. Obviously, in terms of Arteta, I think if you're going to moan, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to moan about something, you've got to highlight it when it goes against you as well, and when it goes for you. Because if you actually want change to occur, if you actually want, something to happen to the rules and things to get better over time, then you've got to be more objective about it, and you've got to accept and highlight also when it goes in your favor and it's wrong. And you can't then have it both ways and throw your toys out the pram when it doesn't go for you. And obviously, I think when you compare him to like Guardiola and Klopp, I think he's not got the same reputation as them yet. He's not won what they've won yet. He's very much like the understudy. So, even if I'm Thomas Frank, I'd want to learn more from Klopp and Guardiola than I would Arteta currently. Obviously, I know currently he's early on in his career, but yeah, I can see why he's not likable, but I guess he doesn't care. He just wants to look after his football club. And that is why a big reason I think the rules and things don't change as well as people want is because people are just looking after their best interests.
Yeah, agreed. I think he is probably going to be the kind of next in line. If I know Klopp's leaving at the end of the season, but the way he's got Arsenal playing this season, the fact that they came close last season, I think with the right kind of summer transfer window, it wouldn't surprise me if Arsenal are like in the title race for the next few years under Arteta if he does
when Pep leaves, definitely.
When Pep leaves, for sure. But we don't know when Pep's going to leave, but we do know Klopp's going. Let's get on to the game. We mentioned the decision, and we'll get onto that because I feel like that's the biggest talking point. But first of all, just immediate reaction from both of you. Craig, I'll start with you.
I went into the game thinking it's going to be a damage limitation game, and we defended. But bar the 2 goals, and I know we're going to touch on them anyway. I thought we actually defended really well. Everything that came our way, it was gone nice and quickly. And I know we'll touch on it again, but Ivan Toney was so defensively solid. I thought he was more defensively solid than he was offensively solid in this game. Anything that came our way, we dealt with it. I thought Flecken had a good game. He did a couple of miss kicks in the first half, but he kind of corrected himself to get himself back up to speed. But he was collecting them in the air. He was commanding the area. Obviously, disappointed with the way that the goal has come about, the winner, especially maybe it's sour grapes. I don't know. Arsenal fans, if they watch this, they're going to say it's bitter, but I don't think Havertz should have been on the pitch to score it anyway. But I think coming away from Arsenal in the run of form that they're in, the season that they're having, I've lost 2-1 and, made them actually work for their victory compared to the games that we've had recently. I think we can take a lot of positives from that performance itself.
Yeah, 100%. I think we said last week that it was mainly a good performance, and I feel like from this run-in that we've had stretching all the way back from the start of February, which looks like it's going to go on sort of until the end of the international break, it's sort of these big games, and because of the situation we're in, I think it's a lot of it is just about we don't want a bad performance. And I think against City we had 2 good performances. Against Arsenal we've had a good performance. Liverpool was a bit shit, but you can't really account for those individual errors. Dan, immediate reaction from you from the game?
I think you can't deny it was better than we all thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
But especially when seeing the team sheet and seeing KLP had to cover at left wing back again against Saka, one of the best wingers in the league. Obviously, I hope Reguilon's not out for too long. But overall, I just can't wait for the season to end because we're absolutely ravished by injuries. And we are still playing well. You can see the systems there, but I don't think we necessarily have the personnel that we normally have, which would mean, that we actually nick a result from these games, which you have done in previous seasons. And it's very frustrating. I think they almost did as good as they possibly could have done in the circumstances, but we're absolutely ravaged and it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. And as long as we stay up, I'll happily, see us into the summer and hopefully we improve next season.
I think before we chat about Burnley, we're getting on to sort of injury territory in that Kevin, Brian, and Pinnock, I think, will be back soon, which is like to even think Sharda has been out for basically the whole season, and it's just crazy. I just completely forgot that he still exists. But yeah, we'll go through it goal by goal, and then we'll talk about the contentious decisions. I think it would be fair to say that in that first half, weren't really in the game, but like you said, Craig, defended pretty admirably. Didn't really give them too many chances. But I do think with Bryce's goal, it's definitely avoidable, and it's annoying because, as you say, Arsenal are a team that love to cross the ball into the box so much. Without Ethan Pinnock, and considering the fact that we've conceded the most in the league from headers this season, I would have thought that we'd be giving chances away all the time. But for me, for the first goal, I think Onyeka has to do better. And I don't like to kind of single down errors to 2 players, but I am going to for the 2 goals. And there's parallels between them in that Onyeka loses his man in the box, and Aya for the second one. I don't know if you two have just watched it back, but his position in the second one's pretty poor. But you'd have thought with the positions that Declan Rice has been taking up in the build-up to the Brentford game, when he's kind of playing in this role where on the team sheet he's a defensive midfielder, but he's an 8, and then he can pop up in the box and be a centre forward. You'd have thought, Dan, that maybe we would have been drilling into the players during training to not lose your man, but Onyeka just falls asleep. And it's similar to when Jensen fell asleep at West Ham. It's just these individual errors, Dan, that are just kind of costing us in these games where we're going to get punished, especially against some of the better sides in the league.
Yeah, and now every time we concede a header, it's going to be highlighted because we know that we've conceded the most headers in the league. And it's unfortunate. Yeah, it just seemed like Onyeka did not follow the man. He kind of just left him and didn't, think about who's going to pick him up. And that's going to be the way we play against these top teams with the low block. There's going to be runners from midfield. They're going to try and pack the area because, there's not many of our players forward for them to, worry about. So they're going to, be doing everything they can to pack pack the box and get everyone in there. So yeah, the manner of it's disappointing, but I think again we even after the goal, which what we haven't always done is we, got back into our shape and we stayed relatively solid for a good period of time rather than letting that affect us and change how we play. And then obviously we got the bit of luck we needed just before half time.
Yeah, it's a good thing we didn't concede in twos this game. But yeah, let's touch on the goal. I would hand this over to Callum, but he can't be here this week because he loves a good Ramsdale rant. And I'm pretty sure the last time we spoke about Ramsdale, I got a pretty good clip for Instagram, but he's not here this week and he hasn't sent me a voice note to plug in. So Craig, you're going to have to assume the role of Callum. Maybe, I don't know how you want to tackle that task, or just run us through that goal in terms of the return of Ramsdale to the lineup, the fact that I was watching in Lisbon and within seconds of the broadcast out there, I don't know if it was the same in England, but within seconds of the goal going in, the camera panned straight to David Raya on the bench. Not that he could play, but just he was on the bench anyway. Talk me through it, Craig.
Well, I can't say I saw that part. We actually press goalkeepers really well. And we've done it in so many games this season, just to highlight Forest away where we should have got a penalty for it, where their keeper clatters. We shut goalies down. And I don't know about you guys, but our games we do it. I'm saying to people, it's going to happen soon. One of these ones is going to ricochet off of attacker and go in the back of the net. And I looked away as Whistler's shutting him down. And I looked back and the ball's in the back of the net. And I was kicking myself. But Ramsdale, he's a prick, isn't he, really? I'm just trying to, I'm making sure Callum can live vicariously through me here. Ramsdale, he's not good. He's good. He's not good enough to be as arrogant as he is. If Alisson or Edison or even Raya was as arrogant as he was, you could justify it by the performances that they put in on a regular basis. The fact that he's played, 2 Premier League games this season, and they're both against us. I know Raya's our goalie, and he's just off the bench, but he's not good enough to play for Arsenal, and he won't be there next season, and God knows how he's been there for the last few seasons. Shout out to Ryan Zudo, you might know him. Shout out to Ryan. He posted a tweet before the game, after the lineup, which said, "Our only saving grace in this game may be that they've got Ramsdale in goal." Shout out to Ryan, because that was absolutely perfect to what was. And then we gave him so much stick in that second half afterwards, that as we said, if they score again, he's just going to run straight over to the away end, which is exactly what he did. But he is so not good enough to be as arrogant as he is, as cocky as he is, and I hope he doesn't play in the Premier League for much longer.
I think he'll play in the Premier League. I don't think he's terrible. He's still a good shot stopper, but do you know that video that came out when he was doing a podcast with Ian Wright and someone else, I can't remember, and he was like, "I can't focus on a game of football for 90 minutes, which is why I turn around and give it to the away fans." It's like, it's not the best trait to have as a Premier League goalkeeper that you can't concentrate on a football match for 90 minutes. It's probably like the one thing, the one thing that you need to do. But I think, Dan, as well, we have to give Whistler his props, because like you said, Craig, same situation at Forest where we should have got a pen, but he closed down Matt Ryan, and he does it quite frequently. I can't remember if it was the reverse game against Arsenal when he did it, or maybe that was in Boomer, but I can't remember too well. But he closed down Ramsdale in a similar situation, almost happened again. And Thomas Frank was quick to give Whistler his flowers as well, Dan. Just on Whistler in general, I've got this a bit later on in the rundown, but we'll tackle it now. I've been really impressed with Whistler since he's come back from AFCON. 3 goals in his last 3, I want to say, against West Ham, Chelsea, and Saturday. But Whistler since AFCON, Dan, how have you felt about him?
Yeah, he had a second wind. I mean, he was struggling a bit when he was playing regularly, obviously before Tony came back. But I mean, his output is there. I think he passed 100 Premier League games or 100 games for Brentford recently. I think he has, his goal involvements are in the 30s, assists combined as well, which I think is very good. You're saying 1 in 3 games, he'll get a goal or an assist, and he doesn't start all of those games. So I think, he's been quite productive. He's been one of our better signings in the Premier League years. And yeah, the last few weeks he's been very, very good. And you can see why you would probably start him ahead of Morpay, especially to use his pace, which Morpay unfortunately doesn't have. And how you can see how that would work, maybe slightly better, maybe more how it would work with Mbumo. When Tony gets the flick-ons and you've got him running off Tony.
Just on a quick flash forward to Burnley, because you mentioned it there. Do we think that Morpay gets the nod ahead of Wissa for the Burnley game? Because the thing is, I feel like it's harsh on Morpay because obviously he's been in great form and he's scoring a lot of goals. But when we do play against the teams where we know we're going to be in that low block, we'd lose the element of danger on the counter. And that's as a consequence, Neil gets dropped. But he started against West Ham, he scored, and he has been playing well, Craig. So it's like it's a dilemma. But does Wissa's form kind of dragged him back into that starting 11 at the expense of Morpay? And well, actually, we'll get onto formations and stuff because I think we should go through it back. I'll add that down here. But just thoughts on the Wissa Morpay selection debate.
Maupay went through that spell where he obviously, while Wissa was at AFCON, where he scored like 5 goals in 5 games or 4 goals in 4 games, whatever it was. Wissa's now won 3 goals in 3 games. He's scored in the last 3 games. So if we're basing it on form, you can't really justify dropping Wissa out for Neil. I just don't see that happening. But you just touched on it slightly a moment ago. As soon as Brian comes back, he is ahead of those two for me anyway. But I think that if Reguilon is just a 1 game out, we have to return to a back 4 for this weekend. But I think that's something we'll go on to anyway. My issue with Wissa is he's far too reactive and not proactive enough for me. In the second half, there was a situation where Ivan's gone up for a header and won the header, and Wissa isn't making that run off of him because it almost looked like he expected him to not win the header. But I just think as if Brian was on the pitch, that he would be in there straight away to try and win that second ball off of an Ivan Toney flick on. Wissa's biggest thing compared to Neil is Neil has a severe lack of pace. And we need that counter opportunity every game between now and the end of the season. And Neil just doesn't provide that, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's a shame as well. It raises more, I know we've spoken about it on the pod before, but it raises more kind of questions as to whether we're going to sign him permanently for next season, especially now we've brought in Thiago. Which we haven't spoken about. I might put that in a little bit later. The fact that he's unfollowed us on Instagram and also deleted the signing announcement from his Instagram as well. Probably, I don't know, just not a good look. I guess you can't really analyse it too much, but he must. I don't know why he would do that if he's been looking at our form and he just doesn't want to be affiliated with us right now.
He's changed his mind.
He's changed his mind. Let's get on to the second half and more defensive good work. Some of the grit that we've become accustomed to seeing, probably not this season, but definitely in the first 2. Gabriel has a chance from a corner and Rice hits the crossbar. But apart from those 2 chances, there wasn't any real clear-cut chances for Arsenal, which I think goes some way, Dan, to probably explaining why I think we deserved a point from the game, personally. I mean, they were the better team, but in terms of the game plan, I think Thomas Frank said it was close to being a defensive masterclass. I'm not sure if I agree with that, just in the sense that 2 errors that were avoidable both led to goals. But what do you think of that second half, Dan? We'll get onto the controversy afterwards.
They seem to have so many corners. I don't know how many they had in the end, but they had so many corners. Craig will check how many they had. And obviously, I know how good they are at set pieces, especially corners, how many goals they score from them. And I thought we defended them very, very well. I know there's a lot of holding going on. But I think that was partially coming from both sides. I'm sure I saw Roslev in a headlock at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But so that aspect was very, very well. And obviously, it's just a shame that we did, in the end, get undone by a cross anyway. But yeah, and we had just as good chances as them on goal in the second half. I mean, that Tony shot from miles out was absolutely brilliant. But obviously,
Yeah.
on another day, it may go in.
Yeah, I think that was just going wide, but still, I know what you mean. To have the audacity to take that on your weak foot from that far out on the half volley, just his quality. I know that he hasn't been at his best, but those little moments, and there's little moments in each game where you just see, that that's the player when he was banging form last season. That's the player that's worth 100 million. Maybe some other aspects of his games aren't the best at the moment, but we'll get onto that in a bit more depth. Collins' chance as well. I really thought that was in. I really thought
It
that
just
was in.
needs to go either side of the keeper. It was straight out.
Yeah. It was a good save from Ramsdale, so I'll give him his flowers there. Havertz controversy. Let's just tackle it. First of all, I've watched it back a few times now. I was kind of in the camp of when I saw it on the TV the first time that it was a dive. Then I saw a few replays of it and saw that there's contact. Then I saw a different angle of it and saw that Havertz has kind of engineered that contact. Craig, how did you see it?
From a football fan or from a Brentford fan?
Both.
From a Brentford fan, it's very clearly a dive.
Mm-hmm.
From a Brentford fan, it's very clearly a dive. Collins has pulled out of the challenge itself. He plants his foot and pulls himself away from the challenge, and Havertz throws himself to the ground. The referee then gives a goal kick, which means either Havertz has dived to try and manipulate the referee, or Collins has fouled him and the ball's gone out of play. If he's giving a goal kick, that suggests it's not a foul, which means it has to be a dive.
Mm-hmm.
From a football fan, as you've rightly pointed out, he kind of works in minimal amount of contact to the upper thigh area where his short brushes against Collins's shorts to kind of get the minimalist amount of contact that you could possibly see between two players before he hits the deck. I am of the firm belief, maybe I feel like there's still a bit of a big club bias, but I am of the firm belief that if that was Ivan Toney or Johan Wissa or Neil, that they get a booking for that and it's a free kick to Arsenal.
I don't want to believe that. Dan, how did you see it?
I think it's on the linesman, because I think where the referee was, I don't think he had a clear view of it. I think it's on the linesman. And what I think is stupid is that the VAR they're not allowed to look at that. And I understand why they're not allowed to look at single yellow cards, because then we might be stopping, several times a game. But I think if there's a player already on a yellow, and there's a chance of a second yellow, and that yellow card being given or not would potentially fundamentally change the course of the game, then I think they should be able to intervene in those circumstances.
So just to build on that, if the referee gives a penalty, Dan, do you reckon he overturns it?
Yeah,
and then has to, in that scenario, if a penalty is given, do VAR look at that and tell him he needs to overturn it, which would then guarantee that he gets booked and sent off?
Yeah, because the referee would have then seen it. But the issue is that VAR aren't allowed to check it in those circumstances, because it's only a yellow card that they're potentially checking, which is
So we kind of all agree that had the referee actually fallen for it and given the penalty,
they would have overturned it.
VAR would have overturned it, and Havertz would have been sent off anyway.
Yeah.
Well, the way VAR is, you just don't know, do you? That's the thing.
The thing is, so it reminds me of in a way that there's the Anthony Gordon one at Newcastle a bit earlier on in the season, where he engineers the contact and he does it in a way more blatant way, and he gets his whole body in front of Flecken so that he actually trips him up and he goes down. And I feel like, was it Jamie Vardy when he was playing for Leicester did it for one of the first times I've seen it, when he kind of he was playing against Arsenal and he rounds the keeper, leaves his leg in there, and Harry Kane was really good at it as well, when he's leaves his leg in that position so that the contact is made. My problem with it is that he's already going down before the contact is even there, and it's almost like once he realizes that contact isn't going to come, he jinks his hip out so that he brushes against Collins' side. So it's just and the Arteta stuff as well. I saw some Arsenal fans in the comments saying this is karma from last season, from when we had the offside goal. It's not karma from last season, because it's a clear difference between an officiating mistake, which is what happened last season, and we all came on here and we all admitted that we really got away with one, and your players cheating. Essentially, it's just
Well, last season there was also in the first half when I can't remember. Was it Brian got like rugby
Yeah.
tackled in and nothing came about it. They didn't even look at it, and I was like, what?
Yeah. Was that from like a fast free kick or something? I can't really remember. It was away. I can't remember what happened.
I just remember someone being taken out, or an advantage wasn't played, or something. Just remember another stupid officiating decision.
Yeah, I know. It's the standard this year has been it's just not been great. And it feels like apart from the Onyeka one at Sheffield United, where he probably should have gone, I can't really remember a decision going in our favour. Maybe Tottenham at home on the first day of the season, the Jensen one, that was probably similar to one that they've not given. But just the general point is that it's just been so inconsistent this year. And it's like the referees are using VAR as a kind of safety cushion for their mistakes, but then VAR aren't picking up on the mistakes. There needs to be some sort of, don't know. I don't know what needs to happen with PGMOL, but it's just got to be better next season because it's clubs like us, Forest, who have been really hard done by, and they really like making it known on Twitter. That they really, really do.
They got a Tony free kick.
Did you see that one though? Did you see the one that was in their game though?
Which one?
Their Brighton player should have had a red card for a tackle. I can't remember who the tackle was on.
Dunk.
He was off the floor, catches him above the ankle, and they go, "It's a booking." If that was against us, I'd be absolutely livid. In the same way that the Onyeka one, he should have got a red card, and if that was against us, I'd be fuming that he didn't get sent off.
Yeah, no, it definitely needs to change. I think for the next season, otherwise, it's just going to be VAR conversations every bloody week. Dan, let's talk about the goal. And I was watching it back, and even on the replays, like as soon as the goal happened, I was thinking, what the hell? What has Aya done to put himself in that situation where he's like flopping backwards trying to make a last-ditch header away? And you can see it as I think it's Ben. Is it Ben White that's running down the wing? Who puts the ball in for?
Yeah, he crosses it.
Yeah, Ben White's running down the wing, and I feel like he's in two minds whether to stay with Havertz in the box or to cover the near post. He ends up covering the near post when Havertz is behind him and there's no real danger. But you don't really need to cover the near post when Flecken's there anyway. So he kind of just puts himself in no man's land, and then he just some sort of diving fish header that just completely misses, and Havertz has the opportunity to put it away, which he does. But again, Dan, it's just these little minute details that are costing us. And when you play against these big sides, you're just going to get punished.
Yeah, I think probably a bit worse than the first one. I think you can draw quite a big ring around Havertz and the amount of space he has for that goal. And I'd be interested to see where the other two centre-backs were positioned, because I suppose I think he's meant to be the middle of the three. So I don't know whether there was someone ahead of him, or I don't know where Zanka and Collins were positioned. But yeah, I mean, when you've got a free at the back, I mean, part of the design of having a free at the back is you have an extra centre back and you're able to cover those spaces better. And it's not acceptable, I don't think, to have such a big space for someone like Havertz. I'd rather it was Hazard, who's obviously done it to us before because he scored in the 1-0 in like the 89th minute at the GTEC. So we know what we know that he's a threat from those types of situations, and the amount of space he had, you'd expect him to score.
100%. Craig, let's go on. I feel like Nathan Collins' performance. We've got to talk about Tony as well. Let's start with Tony. Lots of noise, and there has been lots of noise around his performances since he's been back. How did you see? You said he was good defensively, not so great offensively. Just summarise the kind of last 5 games in terms of Brentford fans. That I feel like the comments in the interviews pre his return have really pissed off a lot of people. And it's like with every bad performance, it's like his head's not there. He wants to be somewhere else. And there's reports that Chelsea have dropped their interest, that Arsenal don't want him. I saw a tweet saying that they don't want him because he's not very likable or something like that, which just sounded like complete bollocks. But and there was also that really funny video of Arteta and Tony's interaction after the game, and everyone was saying that Tony's definitely been planning that for like a week. But Craig, just talk me through the kind of, not the media storm, but the reaction from some Brentford fans. What's your reaction to his performances?
I think that this game, it was always going to be difficult for him to actually have. Well, actually, I say anyone to have an offensive impact on the game, because we was always going to sit deep with an extremely low block and try and catch them on the counter. but we all know that Ivan doesn't have an immense amount of pace, and he's not going to beat, Ben White, Saliba for pace. His aerial presence in a game like this, I thought was actually really good. I thought his aerial presence was top notch. Him, Saliba, and Gabriel were battling the whole game, and it was quite entertaining to watch the three of them, having a go at each other through the whole of the 90 minutes, or the 100 minutes, or however long there was in the end. But he actually showed his defensive ability more this game than he has done recently, because he hasn't had to in previous games the same way he did this time. For context, they had 10 corners in that game. It felt like a lot more, but they had 10 corners. And he was in the box. He won several headers. He was the front line of defense. And I thought that defensively he did very well. But I can only note that one long speculative effort that he had as a shot on goal from him. I cannot put my finger on another one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you compare that performance to the one at the Emirates last season from him, when he was electric and he gave them such a tough time, it is a lot different. And I saw someone say, people saying Ivan Toney's head isn't in the game. It's like, I think we all knew that he would come back and he would probably score a few goals, but I didn't really expect him to hit the levels that he'd consistently been hitting last year. And we're maybe kind of seeing a little bit of a hangover just from not playing Premier League minutes for that long. So yeah, it's a difficult one. He's definitely going to have a big part to play for the rest of the season. Dan, what do you make of the prospect of him potentially not having any buyers in the summer?
It's quite funny in a way. I think I hold him to a higher standard than I probably hold any other Brentford player to. But I think he wants to be held to that standard. The game he talks and the player he wants to be and how he speaks about himself, he wants to be held to that higher standard. So I will hold him to that higher standard. So I think he's shown the odd flash of quality recently, but he's not done enough. He's not, and I know it's difficult with, obviously, he's not playing with Brian. He's having to create new relationships on the field as well. We're playing quite defensive, so he's the only guy up there trying to hold it up all by himself. But I think some of his touches have been a bit sloppy. He's dallied on the ball for a bit too long at times. He's developed. Sometimes he likes to now, instead of win the ball, he will just try and move the defender out the way, and it worked against City. But I don't know if he's doing that a bit too much rather than just trying to actually flick it on himself. But yeah, I don't know if I'm being too harsh, but that's just how I feel about it. I think I do hold him to a higher standard, and at the moment he's not meeting that higher standard. Yeah, and I think Watkins is far ahead of him for that second striker spot for England at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, there's a squad announcement later this week. What happens there, but I'm not sure on current evidence that he'll make it.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm kind of swaying between giving a shit and not giving a shit, because just the way it would have been so cool to see. Well, I don't even know if he would be a Brentford player by the time we get to the Euros, but it would have been amazing to see Brentford represented at a major tournament like that. But now, just the whole interview stuff and the fact that he's working for a big move, I kind of just and Ollie Watkins. Thing is, we dislike both of them now, and it's just Ollie Watkins has been on absolute fire this season. I think he's only second behind Haaland, I want to say, in goals, and he's got one of the most
assists as well.
Yeah, 10 assists. He's got one of the most goal involvements in Europe, and he's on fire. So it might be that Tony misses out at the expense. Tony misses out, and Watkins goes. And I don't know how I'd feel about that. How would you feel about that, Craig?
As a Brentford fan, I'd like to see. I was going to say I'd like to see Brentford represented at a tournament like this. However, we are constantly represented at these tournaments. We've got
England.
a lot of English players.
England.
Give them their dues. They get up there. But I would love to see a Brentford player playing for England at a big tournament like that. And I think that if Rico hadn't got injured, he would be in for a huge shout for it, based on the defensive liabilities that we've had with England recently. I think he would have been in for a huge shout. If Gareth Southgate seems to love Ivan, doesn't he? When he got his ban, Gareth Southgate was all over him, calling him, checking in on him. God knows how that's going since. But Gareth Southgate seems to like him. I can see him getting picked, but I can actually see Watkins ahead of him based on current form. However, we all know that Southgate doesn't necessarily pick teams based on current form, considering Harry Maguire played for England and hadn't played for United for months. So I can see it going either way. But let's be real, he ain't going to be our player when that time comes anyway, is he?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Should we talk about Nathan Collins? Any other performances from the game? Dan, were you impressed with Collins? I know he had a bit of a shaky start in the first half. There was a couple of moments that had my heart in my mouth and just thought that he was going to do the Nathan Collins thing and give it to them. But I thought the second half he was much more assured.
Yeah, there's always one or two. Obviously, he could have got his goal if he just placed it either side of the keeper. I think it was a bit too central. Yeah, it was one of his more solid games. And it was nice to see him not... I don't think he was absolutely brilliant, but, normally it's one end or the other. It was all right just to see him have like a decent
An average game. Yeah.
First ever average Brentford game.
Anyone else you impressed with, Craig? I think Jensen did all right considering Norgard was replaced pretty early on. I hope he's back for the Burnley game because that'll be a big miss. Thought Janet also had a good game. Anyone else that you wanted to shout out, Craig?
Not really. I think that across the board we had okay performances. No one really performed badly, but no one really exceeded expectations in the way that we kind of thought they might have. But this may be one of the games that we didn't expect that to happen. I thought, GKU and all that lot. I thought Flecken was actually really unlucky not to save that Havertz effort. He tips it onto the underside of the crossbar. It's just unfortunate. But I think that it was actually a good performance from us. In the same way that we lost to City with a good performance twice, we didn't go out there and lose this game. We went out there and we got beaten by a team that were just simply better than us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. I think, like we said at the top, performance was the main thing. The fact that we didn't get blown away like Luton made it quite difficult for them, but the fact that we didn't get blown away like Burnley and Sheffield United have done against Arsenal in recent weeks shows that I think we're a level above those two teams. Hopefully we can confirm that kind of sentiment on Saturday. But Luton, I'm still worried about Luton because they got a good point at Palace. And they just worry me a little bit. I feel like when we play them, is it towards the end of April? I think we play them away. That could be crucial, but hopefully we're out of the fight by then. How was the vape display, guys, before the game?
Non-existent.
The fact that that's been picked up by so many people and they don't understand it's a joke just blows me away. If you're part of the pun, let's get on to. I was going to do player ratings. Who of you wants to take Callum's spot for the player ratings?
Shall we alternate?
Yeah, go on.
Alternate.
Just start with Flecken because I know how much you love him.
10. Flecken, I'm going to go for a 7.
7, fair. Who's next?
Zanka, 6. I don't like how he plays out from the back. I feel like he just hoofs it a bit too much for my liking.
Yeah, and also frequently into touch, he hoofs it a lot.
Yeah.
Craig, go to Aya.
Aya, I'm going to go for a 6. I think that unfortunately he, was the one that made that slight error for the second goal. He didn't have a bad game, but he needs to be held accountable, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'll give Collins a 7 because I thought he was slightly better than Aya and Zanka on the day.
Roslev, we'll go right to left. Roslev, I'm going to give us a 6.5. I thought that he was actually quite progressive, but I've mentioned it loads of times. If the ball's not played in front of him, he's not going to run forwards. But 6.5.
I'll give KLP a 7 because he was out of position up against Saka, and I thought he dealt with it quite well.
Yeah, I thought he did actually, and that's actually a good point because Saka is arguably the informed player in the league. And I didn't think he did too much in the game, to be honest. There's a few moments where he got past his runner, but just into like how ruthlessly he tore apart Sheffield United in 45 minutes down at Bramall Lane the week before. And the fact that there wasn't any of that in this game, another positive sign. Who are you going for next, Craig?
I'll go Frank. I'll go for Onyeka next. I'm going to go for another 6.5. He does need to be, again, held accountable for losing his man for the first goal. But he's one of those players that puts his body on the line every opportunity he gets, and didn't have a bad game. 6.5.
Got himself booked in the first 5 minutes though, and that takes away such a big part of his game when he gets himself booked. Because when he's flying into tackles, and it's great when you're not on a booking, but in the first 5 minutes he hamstrings himself for the rest of the game. And like every time he gets near a player, I'm just wincing because I think he's going to get sent off. But
I totally forgot that.
Dan, you go for next.
Jensen, I'll give him a 6. I think he's still carrying some kind of injury ever since he came back, because I don't think he's quite the same player. And I think if we are safe with a few games left, I think he'll disappear and get some kind of treatment. That's just the hunch I have. I don't know any information, but that's just what it seems like to me.
Craig?
Now I'll give a 7. I thought he had actually a really solid game. I think that I would have actually liked to see him slot in over at left wing back towards the end of the game so that KLP could be a bit more progressive and move forward, but we never really got the opportunity to do that with just how they was peppering us. But yeah, he didn't have a bad game. He did quite well. 7.
Wissa 7, I think, just for the goal as much as anything. Worked hard, closed down the keeper, earned that bit of luck that we got.
And do you know what? For Ivan, you might find this a little bit controversial. I'm going to go for a 7.5, the highest rating for me, based on his defensive performance more than his offensive performance. I just thought he was fantastic defensively this weekend.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
I quite like the little explanation after each rating. Callum, when you return, you might have had those duties taken off you. Who knows? Let's get on to the Burnley game. Obviously, it's huge. The fact that they got a point at West Ham and only really lost 2 points in the last few minutes of the game, it's going to give them a boost for sure. I was kind of scrolling through Burnley Twitter, if that is even a thing, but I was scrolling through Prominent Podcasts and some of the replies. Some of them are a bit fed up with company's management, but I think all things considered, and do you know what? The gap between them and Sheffield United and the rest of the league now is just opening up. It's a good point. I mean, you know, it is difficult, the game on Saturday. I don't know whether to be confident or whether to be shitting myself, because the players will know it's a big game and they know that 3 points, I think, on Saturday will go some way to confirming our Premier League status next year. How are you feeling, Craig?
Do you know what? This is the most nervous I've been for a Premier League game in a long while, because it's one of those games that has there's a lot of significance around it, around the, you know, our status as a Premier League club. We've played Arsenal, Chelsea, City twice, Liverpool within the last sort of like 7-8 weeks. That a lot of those games haven't been, you know, season defining, but we're going into the back end of the season now, and this is one of the first season defining games. We need to go there. We need to win, in my opinion. We need to win. But my biggest concern is we seem to perform well, perform badly, perform well, perform badly. And I'm worried that we're going to have to go to Burnley and outscore them to win the game. I don't want us to go there and have to score 4 goals to win, which I just see that happening, unfortunately. But I want to say don't lose, but this is becoming 6-point territory now.
What is it? Don't lose, or is it must win?
I think I don't even know. You know, I'm so kind of riled up about it that I don't want us to lose, but we need to win. If that
is sitting on that fence, mate.
I'm sitting on it. Yeah, I'm teetering on both sides.
Dan, must win or don't lose.
I don't think we're in must-win territory yet. I would obviously be very worried if we don't win, but we will have other opportunity against other teams down there to try and, you know, get the points we need. You know, some of them we have to win some of the games out of Luton, Sheffield United, Everton, and Burnley.
Forest.
We probably have to win, and Forest. Yeah, we probably have to win 3 of them.
Have we played Forest twice already? We have played Forest twice.
Yeah,
sorry.
we have. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We probably have to win 2 or 3 of those. And obviously it'd be nice to get off the mark with that against Burnley. But I don't necessarily think their result of the weekend will give them much confidence, because they should have won. They don't have enough games left to be drawing in the position they're in. It really is a must-win game for them on Saturday. Go on.
If Luton win on Wednesday at Bournemouth and they go a point behind us, 2 points behind us, is it then a must-win game?
No.
So if they win, it will likely drop Forest into the bottom 3,
and they play Forest at the weekend.
But then it means that the bottom 4 teams are separated by 2 points.
Yeah, it'll be close, and I'll be worried, but it's not a must-win.
I feel like this is the first must-win 6-point game.
I hope we win. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of must-win. I think we probably need to win maybe 3 out of the 4 games against the 4 teams I said. And obviously, if we do lose at the weekend, that means we need to win the other 3, and those become must-win. But I think we've got to look at the bigger picture. But obviously, I will be so worried if we do lose at the weekend, and it needs to be about 4, I think.
Yeah, I think it would turn toxic. I'll definitely have a good tweet of the week for that eventuality if we do lose. Jesus Christ, that would be not funny. It'd be funny and worrying at the same time. But in terms of getting the win, are we saying back 4? It has to be. Might be the first time we've seen it in a very long time.
Even if no Reguilon, I think you got to put your Nelt there probably. And obviously there's an issue if Norgard can't play as well. Who do you play there if your Nelt's at left back? But I think, if you can't have Reguilon now, I think you got to have your Nelt there and play a back 4 against them. I don't think we can be sitting back against them. And I'd like to see KLP on the wing. I think he can do some damage on the wing if he plays in that position against Burnley. And I think we'll have some chances. I think they'll have some chances too. I think they do play decent football. Even if they don't always finish it off, I think before the West Ham game, they were probably the better team against Bournemouth, even though Bournemouth won. But yeah, there's chances there. I feel like we said similar things before the home game against Burnley, and we did quite well. So, I think definitely back 4 and front 3.
Especially against a team that have not reverted to a back 5 the whole season. I'm pretty sure they played 4-4-2 or 4-5-1 or however you want to call it the whole season. And you're right to point out the fact that it was 3-0 in the home game, right? It was pretty dominant from us.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Godos won the whole game.
And Mbeumo, 2 really good goals in that game. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've been crying out for a front 3. A front 3 of Wissa, KLP and Tony would suit us nicely, Craig.
Mbeumo on the bench.
And Mbeumo on the bench. Don't bring him on though.
I'd love to see Brian
if needed.
I don't want him in this game. I don't want him at all in this game.
If it's a must-win, though, we'll have to bring him on.
He's a must-not-lose player. So I would rather him be 100% United in 3 weeks than 70% for Burnley and then be out for the rest of the bloody season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would be typical. I think that would be a good place to wrap things up, boys. We'll be back with a proper Burnley preview sort of late in the week. But remember to drop the comments below. Were we robbed of a result at Arsenal? I'm not sure. That might be a bit too strong. Have we had any decisions go away this season? How big is the game against Burnley on Saturday? Let us know in the comments. And like I said, the Eden Road podcast will be back in the week for a preview of the Burnley game. So keep your eyes peeled for that. In the meantime, remember to subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels. Comment on this video, like I just said, and give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Eden Road on Twitter and at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. Gents, it's been a pleasure. We shall pray for 3 points on Saturday.